It's 11 o'clock. So welcome everybody to Thoughts on Thursday. Will you please change your settings, chat settings to hosts and panelists, please, so we can all see the chat. To everyone, change that if you do that now, please. And I might remind you in the chat a bit later on if anybody's not still doing that. So welcome to the webinar, the free webinar on appraisals and feedback. Now, we all know feedback is essential for us to do well, but we don't always want it, we don't always enjoy it, and it's not easy to give it, as many of us will know who've been in a management or leadership or even a parental role. Our speaker today knows how to do it well. He's been a businessman for many, many years. He started 7 businesses. I've known him for 35 years as a trainer. I know that he cares about business, but more importantly for me, he cares about people. And that's really, and today he's going to bring us some really practical ideas on how to do this idea of appraisal and feedback better. So, Bob, over to you.
Thank you very much, Walter. Really appreciate it. Let me just get my slides off of my computer screen so I can actually listen and learn and talk to everybody here. So Walter, keep an eye on the chat for me, keep an eye on the Q&A for me so that we can interact with people as easy as possible. Let me start with the issue that I think really hits home, is that as far as appraisals and feedback are concerned, as managers, as leaders, we're really between a rock and a hard place. If you compare all the research that's out there, 2001, one of the studies found that companies experienced a 10.6% reduction in business performance in the period after annual appraisals. Now, you would think that running annual appraisals is supposed to make things better. They were not making things better. They were making things worse. And yet, other studies say that staff have a far greater retention rate when they get regular and continuous feedback. In fact, staff retention rates are like 15% higher when people get regular and consistent feedback. And the reality is we've got to recognize that if we give appraisals or feedback poorly, it's going to cause a problem. In addition, we have to recognize that if we only run appraisals and feedback sessions, like on an annual basis, maybe even on a biannual basis, actually they cause more of a problem. They reduce performance. And that's partly because of a mindset that I'll save that feedback up for the appraisal session. I'll save that for later instead of dealing with it now. So we have to be careful we don't get between a rock and a hard place. Now, first question to answer in the chat: who has not had any genuine performance improvement, whether positive or negative, not just a thank you, genuine performance improvement feedback in the last 2 weeks? Just put yes or no, or me. Who has not had genuine feedback in the last 2 weeks? Me, tell me. Who's not had?
Yes, me, yes.
Okay, so we have the volume of people saying they haven't had genuine performance feedback in the last 2 weeks. Often true of leaders within a business. They're often the ones that get left out with this stuff. Here's a scary statistic from HR Advisor. 24% of people who've not had some kind of feedback in the last 2 weeks are checking out jobs on the job boards. A quarter of our staff, a quarter of our leaders who've not had positive feedback get a bit itchy, scary. Put that up against what PwC say, that 72% of people want feedback, and 75% of people say redirective feedback, which is negative feedback, given effectively helps them improve. So people are desperate for it on all levels if we can actually do it right, do it well. So my promise to you today is that we'll talk about the keys of using feedback and appraisals as part of an effective performance management system. We'll look at how to structure feedback so it lifts people up rather than tears them down. We'll look at how to help people achieve more through feedback and performance appraisals, and we will look at turning poor performance around. We'll spend a fair bit of time on feedback, proportionally more time on feedback than appraisals themselves, partly because appraisals is a feedback mechanism, and if we get feedback kind of right in our heads, then appraisals run a lot easier. Now, for everybody that completes the exit survey, there is a free talent assessment matrix and a free copy of the appraisal helper, which is a guide for both manager and employee. There's 4 free PDF documents you would receive. One lucky person is going to get a leadership assessment report and feedback session. And that whole multi-assessment approach we use normally costs people £1,367. So one lucky person that fills in the exit survey gets that for free. And anybody who completes the exit survey and asks for it can have a management and performance appraisal training program, either than 4 90-minute Zoom sessions or a 1-day face-to-face. Yes, we can come back and do face-to-face training. You'll get a training program at a 25% discount. Please just apply in the feedback survey. Please remember to take notes. It's vital that you do something with some of this information in the next couple of days. Otherwise, it just disappears. So please, if you can find 2 things you can practically do between today and tomorrow, then this next hour will have been worthwhile. So let's define performance management. A or B? Put the answer in the chat. What do you feel is the better definition of performance management? A, performance management is an ongoing process of communication between the supervisor and the employee that occurs throughout the year and supports the accomplishment of strategic objectives by both the organization and the employee. Or B, performance management is a corporate management tool that helps managers monitor staff. Give us an A or a B.
A.
I tried to make it easy. I tried.
Today's.
Let me highlight a couple of words. It's ongoing. It's communication. It's in support of strategic business objectives and the personal development objectives of the employee. That's performance management. And of course, it covers having policies in place, having objectives and standards, having some kind of regular, if not frequent, appraisal process and forms in place, along with frequent recognition and praise and redirected feedback. Yes, we've got to manage underperformance and we've got to implement things around discipline. Yes, we want a reward and recognition strategy. And yes, we need personal development or learning and development activities. It's hugely important. All those elements form a performance management system. And unless we've got those 7 things in play, we really not got all the tricks, all the arrows, all the quivers in our arrows, all the arrows in our backpack. Top performance management challenges. Put something in the chat. What would you say are the most problematic challenges you have with performance management?
Nothing yet. They're all writing. Allowing myself enough time. Time tends to be the top one. What else?
Clarity
of objectives.
Clarity.
Not doing it often enough.
Frequency.
Giving corrective feedback. The apologetic underachiever. Not feeling like I'm micromanaging someone's work.
How do you get that balance between micromanaging and giving people feedback? What is the balance being reactive and proactive? Can we get alignment between clarity around the goals, business and personal? And one of the other ones that we don't often think about is trust. Scary statistic on its way. Watch out. There's a classic Harvard case study which proved that 58% of people trust a stranger more than they trust their boss. So if trust is not there, then we are going to struggle with performance management. Be careful, build rapport and trust. It's really important. Now, the big challenge that we have, in my opinion, with performance appraisals, with feedback, is that leaders can either ignore positive or negative behavior. They could reward positive or negative behavior, or they could punish positive or negative behavior. As a leader, we have three options. We can ignore, reward, or punish. Now, what do you think that most managers and leaders choose to do out of those three? Reward, ignore, or punish?
Punish. Ignore, 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 ignore. No, lots of ignores.
You're right. Most of the time, most leaders and managers ignore both the positive behaviors, and the negative behaviors, even double It is crazy. The impact of a suboptimal response, if we can call it that, by the leader is huge. The impact of inconsistent responses by the leader is huge. How are we going to build trust if we're inconsistent? How are we going to build trust if we're inconsistent across a group and end up with polarity between one person or another? These are huge issues. So for me, this is the biggest challenge. What do we reward? What do we ignore? And what do we punish? So first off, we've got to work out something. I mean, how do we know what good looks like or what bad looks like? How do you know that? What tells you, put an answer in the chat, what tells you whether an employee's performance is either good or not good?
Revenue.
Right, okay. Business results.
Meet company ethos and strategy, attitude.
Ethos, strategy, attitude, yeah.
Engagement.
Level of engagement.
KPIs, values.
KPIs, okay.
Agreed metrics, motivation.
Now, some of those are easier to monitor and measure than others. It starts with a job description, believe it or not, an up-to-date job description. And it's scary. If you go looking in your HR portal, scare yourself just how up-to-date are the job descriptions, because jobs move and job descriptions often don't. Have we cascaded business goals to a team? Have we cascaded them to the individuals? Can you get from the top strategy in a business on one piece of paper to a team set of goals, to an individual set of goals? Can you do that in 3 pieces of paper? Can an employee, anyone in the business, connect up and access those 3 plans? Does everybody know the business goals, the team goals, and their own individual sprint plan goals? Have people got a few clear KPIs that are measurable and accessible, where they've got some kind of visual dashboard? They can tell what a good day is. They can tell if they've had a bad day. People need to know themselves whether they're winning or losing, so they can do something about it themselves. Yes, we've got to have clear company values. Have they been translated into behavior standards? Have you got a maturity matrix describing the greater alignment that would be displayed by certain values as people mature in the business? So it's clear what a 5 out of 5 is and a 4 out of 5 is. Or are we just asking people to guess? Has everybody got a PDP? Has everybody got their own personal development plan? Remember the famous Zig Ziglar quote: you can have anything you want, provided you help enough other people get what they want. Apply that in a business. If every member of staff has got a personal development plan and is encouraged and supported in working towards it, they're getting what they want. We have a greater chance of getting what we want. Are we delegating effectively? As leaders and managers, have we sold the why we're asking people to do jobs? Have we sold the what? Have we sold the when? And have we engaged the other person in working out the how they're going to do it and the evaluation? Well, if we've done all that, then we actually do know what good looks like. And we do know what less than good looks like. We've got a chance. We've got a way of lifting people up. Now, do remember, each of those things I've just talked about is a takeaway you could do something with. Are your job descriptions up to date? Have you got 3 strategic goals across the business, the teams, and the individuals? Has everybody got less than 5 KPIs so they can tell if they win or lose every day? Have you translated the company values into a maturity matrix? Has everybody got a PDP? And has every manager been trained how to delegate? Of course, that transfers into an interesting cycle because we've got clarity of the role. We've got SMART goals and KPIs. We've got a chance to sit down with someone every month and go over their PDP. We've got a chance to sit down with them once a week and go over their job and their tasks and their focus. And of course, we can run a formal appraisal meetings every 2, 3, 4 months. There's no reason to wait 6 months. Please don't wait a year. So we've got every opportunity to have a nice, steady heartbeat of a cycle going on that connects business performance and personal development. Please remember, take notes. We need to do something in the next couple of days, otherwise this stuff is gone. Now, if people exhibit good behavior, then yes, we want to lift people up. And behavior that is rewarded reoccurs. It's a key principle to record. Behavior that is rewarded reoccurs. Now, be careful. If the only attention a dog gets from its owner is a kick for bad behavior, the dog is highly likely to ensure he gets some kicks. So he'll misbehave because that's the only attention he gets. Think about it. Behavior that is rewarded, doesn't say that the reward is positive, reoccurs. Now, if we can make the feedback, the reward, more immediate, the better. If we can clarify the link between the behavior and the reward, even better. If we can systematize it so that the feedback or the reward is intrinsic within the process, even better. What can we recognize? What can we look out for in terms of good or poor behavior? The easiest model to think about is a CAR, C-A-R. We can observe, monitor, measure, and therefore give feedback on competency. That's the C, competency. It's a posh word for attitude, skills, and knowledge. And of course, attitudes is a reflection of the company's values, so we can pick up on that. The A in CAR is activity. We can pick up on actual behavior. They're often the lead measures that form part of KPIs. We can pick them up. We can monitor them and measure them and give people feedback on them. And R in CAR is results. Those are the typical kind of lag measures we would often have in a business. And of course, remember, the formula for success is doing the right things well enough, often enough. That's the farm that produces the crops. When we only focus on results, the lag measures, we're focusing on the crops. And crops sometimes come and sometimes they go. What's consistent is the farm, which is doing the right things well enough and often enough. Now, 69% of employees say they would work harder if they felt their efforts were better recognized. Nearly 70% of people would put more discretionary effort in if we recognize them more. So what would happen? Rhetorical question. You don't have to put anything in the chat. You can if you want. What would happen if you asked your staff these 2 questions? Question 1. What have you done in the last 2 weeks to positively surprise me? What have you done in the last 2 weeks to positively surprise me? Second question. What are you planning to do in the next 2 weeks to positively surprise me? Let's lift people up. Let's give them the challenge of surprising us with their competency, their activities, and their results. And let's make sure we recognize it. Now, the more systematized feedback is in the process, the better. If you take computer games, inbuilt within most computer games is a feedback mechanism which rewards the right behavior, and an inbuilt feedback mechanism which punishes the wrong behavior. And computer games for many children and teenagers and some adults are addictive. One of the reasons for that is that it provides systematized, constant in-game feedback. But what is missing from a computer program feedback mechanism? What one thing, put an answer in the chat, what one thing is missing from computer program feedback mechanisms?
Not personal, empathy, people, empathy.
All right, I'm going to tweak that word empathy and that word personal. I'm going to say either take which one you prefer. Emotion is missing or bias is missing. Bias sometimes between us, we have an inbuilt bias as a leader, as a manager. And of course, that translates because perception is projection. So emotion is missing, bias is missing from that computer program feedback system. We've got systematized data, which is reacting in-game live and either rewards or punishes the behavior, depending on whether it's right or wrong. So you have to think as a takeaway, how can I build feedback into the process of doing key tasks? If the task is key to the business and to the person, then it makes sense to try and systematize that. Put something into the process of them doing the job that they can see. Yes, I'm winning. Yes, I've taken a step backwards. I need to adjust my approach. So the more immediate the feedback, the better. Of course, age matters here. And generally speaking, the younger person prefers more on-the-spot feedback over formal reviews. So Gen Y and Gen Z are looking for more on-the-spot feedback, far more, to a far greater extent than they would even with quarterly performance appraisals. They want it here and they want it now. And if we take that on as a leadership imperative, that people require on the spot recognition in particular, what does that require of us as the leaders? Put something in the chat. If we took that on as a leadership imperative, what does that one thing require of us?
You can hear the thinking going on.
On the spot recognition. What does that require of us?
Being present.
Yeah, being there. Being there. If you can't be there, have to have some.
Noticing.
Say again, Walter?
Noticing.
Got to notice it somehow. You've got to catch people doing it right. And either that's got to be your eyes or somebody else's eyes or some kind of system which is reporting on it. We have to be constantly on the lookout and targeting ourselves for giving praise and recognition. You know, one of the leaders I've worked with over the years carries 5 coins in his left-hand trouser pocket. And his goal every day is to move those 5 coins from the left-hand pocket to the right-hand pocket. And he only moves the coin if he gives somebody recognition. And he's constantly out there looking to give recognition. Now, no fake news, please. Feedback has to be authentic and genuine. Otherwise, it decreases motivation. It ruins the whole process. It has to be authentic. No fake news. Take that away. Set a measurable goal to give praise on a more consistent and more frequent basis. Yes, we've got to create a clearer link between their behavior and the reward. Consistency is absolutely essential. And we've got to have evidence that supports us giving people recognition. I mean, take an example. What would you prefer? I'm giving you some recognition. You can either have A, or you can have B, or you can have C. Here comes A. Thank you. You did a good job today. Here comes B. Thank you. You did a good job today with Mr. Hayward. C. Thank you. You did a good job today with Mr. Hayward. You listened well. You replied calmly. You asked good questions. Those are the skills that make a huge difference to customer service in our company. Thank you. Well done. What would you prefer? A, B, or C?
C, 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 C. Everybody C.
We have to put evidence in there. We have to make it personal. Here's a takeaway. Use the incident, action, benefit formula. You did a good job today with Mr. Hayward. That's the incident. Action. You listened well. You replied calmly. You asked good questions. That's the actions they took. Benefit. Those are the skills that make a difference with customer service in our organization. Well done. Incident, action, benefit. And please include the word you. You did a good job. Thank you. You listened well. You replied calmly. Incident, action, benefit, and include the word you. Spread the love. Create a double tap. John Harvey Jones wrote a letter when he went to a site across the world. He was chief exec of ICI. And whenever he visited a factory anywhere in the world, he would seek out someone who performed really well. He'd find from the management team an employee or a manager who'd done a great job. He'd write a letter and send it with a 6-pack of bottle of wine to his home address or her home address. The letter saying thank you went with 6 bottles of wine to their home. It rewarded that person twice, according to Sir John Harvey Jones, because I gave him the letter and his partner gave him some extra praise. Dr. Rich last week talked about giving handwritten notes to his own staff. I've still got a letter from Dorothy Carnegie, wife of Dale Carnegie, 40 years after she wrote it to me and said, thank you for doing a good job. Target one person a week to do something that will create a double tap. Spread the love around. Praise people more visibly. I used to do poor performance feedback by taking people out for a meal. Nobody wanted to come out for a meal with me because they knew if they came out for a meal with me as a member of staff, they get fired. It's crazy. Do poor performance in private. Don't do something fancy about it. Do something fancy about the praise. 2 MDs I work with used to do something similar. They only invite a team member into their office if they were going to take their head off. They swapped it around. You only got into their office if they were going to praise you. Take something away from this. Please create a systematic, meaningful, and visible way to create a double tap. You reward the employee once with the recognition and something else follows up. Something else impacts other people or them a second time. Please take some notes, do something with it. So, if you're going to address poor performance, we've talked about praising great performance. What are some of the excuses we and other leaders tend to make to avoid addressing poor performance? Please put something in the chat. What are the excuses we and others make to avoid addressing poor performance?
Confrontation.
Yeah, it's the first one. It's the first one.
Conflict, not enough confidence.
Yeah.
Avoid awkwardness.
Yeah.
Too busy.
Time. Yeah.
Don't want to demoralize.
Yeah.
Too busy again.
Those are very common ones. Discomfort or lack of confidence with confrontation, can't get my words out. Discomfort with confrontation is a big one.
May not know exactly how to articulate it best.
Don't know how to say it. It's only a small thing. I don't want to upset them. A particular anxiety comes around losing star performers perform some things very well normally and some things not so well normally. It's fairly common. There's always anxiety about tackling a star performer on the things they don't do so well. Preserving morale, Time is a big issue, and protecting popularity.
What about being friends with the person?
Yes. Yeah, we want to protect popularity, either theirs or ours, or a friendship. And that causes the vast majority of it. Those are the excuses that kind of put us off giving poor performance. So what can you do about it? Poor performance or suboptimal performance, if you want to be slightly more positive about it, you can still look out for the CAR model, the competency, the activity, and the results. Do remember, 92% of respondents agree that redirective negative feedback, if delivered appropriately, is effective in improving their performance. So actually, people are looking for you to do it well. And remember, in a team, we're in a rowboat where everybody's rowing together. Imagine 7 or 9 people in a team, all sat in a rowboat, all with long oars, all pulling it together in the same direction. They're all facing the same direction, all pulling at the same pace. It's a phenomenal team. Now, in your mind, just have one of those team members stop pulling on the oars. That'll slow the team down. Now take that one passenger and physically turn them around so they face the other direction, and have them pull the oars in the wrong direction. What's that going to do to a team? You've got 7 members of the team pulling in one direction and 1 pulling in the opposite direction. What's that going to do? It's catastrophic. Put an answer in the chat. Who do the team members blame for the terrorist sat in their boat?
Management.
A manager.
Manager.
They blame the manager. They blame the leader. They blame the coach. The Romans had it right. They only put armor on the front of their soldiers. They only put armor on the front of their leaders. There was no armor on the back. If you turned from the heat of the battle, you were more likely to get caught. You were more likely to get injured. You're more likely to die. If we've got passengers, we can just about cope. If you've got somebody pulling in the wrong direction, we have to deal with it. Now, to deal with it, it helps if you've got a positive relationship bank account. So do think about having a positive relationship bank account with each and every one of your direct reports. And I would advise your partner and family. Julie, my love of my life, Julie, when we got married, we had 4 days in the Brecon Beacons. You didn't really thank me for that. That's all I could afford at the time. Later, I took her to Mauritius, and we went and stayed in one of the best hotels in Mauritius, which is called the Oberoi. I spent thousands on that holiday, trying to do everything at the best possible class I could afford. That gets me £1 in the relationship bank account. A couple of weeks ago, on the way home, I bought us some flowers from the Co-op petrol station, or the Co-op shop in the petrol station, I should more accurately say. They cost me a £5. It gave me £1 in a relationship bank account. It doesn't matter whether you spend 8 grand or £5. In the relationship bank account terms, that's 1 credit. No fake news, please. No fake news. It makes things worse. It has to be genuine praise and recognition. If I'd have bought those £5 flowers for our wedding anniversary, or for Mother's Day, or for our birthday, it would have absolutely gone the wrong way. One of my clients, the boss has had, well, not just the boss, but the business had the best year ever. They've had a stunning year. 2021 was an amazing year, and he gave every one of his staff a £50 gift voucher. So gifts can be negative. People have in their heads an equity theory, a fairness mechanism, and that was the only reward they got. They didn't get another bonus. They knew the company had the best year ever. Just didn't seem fair, didn't seem equitable. Watch out. With relationship bank accounts, you've got to keep the credits going, because every now and again, you're going to have to make a withdrawal. The withdrawal costs you a £5. The credit gives you £1. One person I know has just recently moved jobs. They have taken the same job at a different company for exactly the same salary. In the old job, they had bonuses. Every 6 months, they got a bonus. No feedback, no training, but they did get a bonus. Now, money is a hygiene factor. It's rice bowl stuff. If you haven't got enough rice in your rice bowl, you want more of it. But once you've got enough rice, money's no longer a motivator. It's a hygiene factor. If you take it away, there's a problem. If you give people more, it doesn't make any difference. Took the new job, no bonuses, but a pre-agreed training program prior to start. Now, she don't know whether she's going to get any feedback or not, but she's got the same job for a bigger company and she's got an agreed training package. Please take something away from the relationship bank account. What can you do today, tomorrow, to add something to the bank account of each of your direct reports, to add credits into the bank account? Because at some point, when you give them negative feedback, you're going to have to make a withdrawal and it's going to cost you a fiver. It's very tough to go overdrawn in a bank account. Just think what happens with your actual bank, be it Barclays or HSBC or Santander. When you go overdrawn beyond your agreed allowance, you get all those nasty letters and stuff. If we go overdrawn in our relationship bank accounts with our direct reports, we just get tough stuff. If you're in credit, you can get away with it. So remember, when you're about to give negative feedback, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Don't go firing off, giving them the bad feedback, the redirected feedback, before you analyze the situation. Have you really thought about all the performance variables? Have you got the right people with the right tools and the right support doing the right job? Have you thought about all the situational variables? Are there clear organizational goals? Are there clear employee behaviors? Any leadership issues from your side? Is it a matter of focus? Is it a matter of skill? Is it a matter of will? Please think through both the performance variables and the situational variables before you head off and give somebody redirected feedback. As the old principle goes in woodwork and dressmaking, measure twice, cut once. The key to turning poor performance around is making the feedback immediate, creating a clearer link between the feedback and the behavior, to making it more systematized and to making sure it is improvement orientated. More immediate, clearer link between the behavior and the feedback, more systematized and more improvement orientated. Remember, a 2% improvement in a top performer is probably going to give you a greater bang for your buck than a 10% improvement in a bottom performer. Lots of leaders let the top performers off their poor behaviors, their suboptimal behaviors. They concentrate on the lowest performer in their group, and it doesn't necessarily help turn the performance of the team or the business results around. We need to make sure we're honing everybody's performance with immediate feedback, clear links, make it more systematized and consistent, and make it improvement orientated. So I like the model P, PEA, when giving redirected feedback. PEA, start with something positive or polite, or at least calm. Now, I'm not going to talk about the brown sandwich stuff that a lot of people talk about. I would prefer to start talking like an adult rather than a parent or a child. And I'd kind of like the person I'm giving the feedback to be in adult mode rather than parent or child. So I've got to start the conversation off with some kind of rapport, some kind of positiveness, at least politeness or calmness, maybe even with a contrasting statement like, I'm just about to give you some feedback, Walter. What I don't want to do is upset you. What I do want to do is agree a positive way forward. So a contrasting statement says what you don't want to do before you say what you do want to do. Or you could at least discuss and agree shared goals and shared purposes, so you know from a beginning, from the get-go, you're on the same page. So the P isn't always giving someone positive feedback. It's often about being polite, being calm, being in adult mode, offering people a reason for giving them the feedback, getting mutual shared goals and purposes clarified up front. The E is explain what you don't like. And here we need to concentrate on the word I. Be directive, be factual, be calm while being empathetic. But use the word I. I'm really upset by what happened yesterday. I get really annoyed and frustrated when customers get let down. I feel like that customer got let down and that really winds me up. I haven't used the word you once. Concentrate on the word I. Then ask them for a reason. Maybe ask them the typical review questions. Even though I'm not happy with that performance, what do you think you did well? What did you do less well? What do you think the customer's frustrations were? What were your frustrations? What do you think my frustrations are? What was missing? Those are 4 great review questions. Did well, less well, frustrations and missings. And of course, when they explain it, let them unpack. You haven't got to answer. You're not there to answer the reasons for their poor performance. You're merely there to listen to it. And finally, the A, ask them for improvement ideas. Now you can do that using the word achieve. You might want to make a note of these. It will be in the materials we send out. Achieve is a great model for asking people for ways to improve. A, how could you improve your ability in this area? How could you improve your ability? C, how can you improve the clarity of your focus in this area? C, clarity. H, help. How could you improve the help you receive from others? How could you get more help from others? Ability, A, clarity, C, help, H. The I is involvement. How could you strengthen or improve your level of involvement? How could you get more connected with this? How could you get more stuck in? How could you really put your all into this? E, environment. How can we make your working environment more conducive to getting through this? V, values. How could you live more appropriately by the values of the company and the values you aspire to yourself? And the final E, what type of encouragement do you want from me? What type of encouragement would it help you to receive from your peers? So these are great ways to ask the A of P, ask for improvement ideas. Ability, clarity, help, involvement, environment, values, and encouragement. It's a phenomenal model to help people brainstorm ways to improve. Of course, having identified a number of ways to improve, you'd prioritize them and put them into a plan. You see, turning poor performance around is all about a series of R's. You've either got to refocus them or redirect them so that they start to do more of the right things more often and better. Do the right things well enough and often enough. You may have to resupply them. They may not have all the tools and technology that you thought they had. You may need to remotivate them. You may need to retrain them. You may need to refit or rearrange their office or their kit or their systems. If things are really bad, you might need to reassign them to another job. Everybody has the chance to be an A player in the right job, managed by the right boss, or managed at least in the right kind of way. Please don't label people A players and B players and C players. Everybody can be an A player in the right job, managed in the right way. And it's our job as the managers and the leaders to make sure we've assigned the person to the job they can actually excel at. Worst are, I guess, of the lot, the one we won't want to do is release. We have to be prepared to release people, ideally through some kind of progressive disciplinary process if we have to. Well, those are the R's: refocus, redirect, resupply, remotivate, retrain, refit or rearrange, reassign or release. So remember to take some notes and do something with them. What's an appraisal then? What is an appraisal? Appraisal is a method by which the job performance of an employee is documented and evaluated and is part of a career development cycle. where there's consistent, frequent reviews of that performance. It's a method. It's about job performance. It's documented. There's an evaluation process in there. It's about career development, and it needs to be done frequently. It formalizes many of the things we've been talking about in terms of positive and negative feedback. Often we assess traits as an appraisal process, and I'd question whether that's appropriate. Too often, feedback is infrequent. Annual biannual processes are going to cause a drop in performance, not an increase. Too many are not data-based. We take too long. We haven't got long memories. We don't collect the data. We actually don't save it up. Most appraisals rely on memory, and that's pretty rubbish, really. Too many focus on the person, purely the person, rather than appraising the processes and the tools and the systems that the business is using, which is a fundamental part of the situation. And often there's a lack of accountability once you get an appraisal done and there are various plans discussed. Of course, it can end up as a lecture, and worst of all, it could be connected with pay rises and bonuses. Money is not a motivator if you have enough rice in your rice bowl. Morning. So in terms of an overview of an appraisal, then yes, it would start with analyzing all the evidence of all the variables, the situation, the job, the person, everything. We have to make sure that we analyze and collect the evidence first. And I'd encourage, in terms of appraisals, both the employee and the manager to do that. You've got to select the appropriate approach, and your company may have a formal appraisal process, and you've got to use that form. May or may not be great, doesn't matter. Use that as the minimum and add to it. Do some extra things and document them in the notes. Do plan a whole series of questions, and please plan the desired outcomes. Invite your staff member, your direct report, to plan questions and to set objectives before you come together. Facilitate their preparation as much as you facilitate your own. And please make sure you set it up in an appropriate environment. So analyze the variables, select the right approach, plan the questions and the desired outcomes, facilitate the other person's preparation, and make sure you set up a great environment, which could be as simple as putting 2 chairs on the same side of the table. Please don't sit opposite someone across a table where you're going to have a negotiation or something. Work on this together, side by side. Make sure it's a private conversation. We've got to have a private conversation. You want it not in a glass bowl. And please don't make my error of doing it in restaurants. It's not private. Okay, it's away from the company. It was a dumb idea. It's a private conversation somewhere. No one really knows that you're there. It's in a meeting room off a corridor. It's not visible. It's private. It's not your office. It's neutral. Build rapport. In terms of structuring the conversation, build rapport. Reassure them. This is an adult to adult conversation. It's one based on trust and consistency and evidence. Build rapport, reassure. Recap on the goals. What are the goals and the roles that they've been working on? Spend some time reflecting on their roles and their goals. And then please give them recognition. After all, this is an appraisal. Just think of that word, appraisal. You could break it into 3 syllables. If I cheat, A, praise, all. The letter A, the word praise, and the word ALL, all. Recognition is key to the appraisal. If you've stored up a bunch of redirective negative feedback to give it the appraisal, you've just shot yourself and your direct report in the foot. It's about recognition. Do a review. What's working? What's not working? What are everybody's frustrations? What might be missing? Add in a small number of redirective options if you have to. and then reset or restate the original goals. And if you've recognized the pattern, you notice there's another set of R's: rapport, reassure, recap on goals, recognition, review, reset or restate goals. Remember, take some notes. And my promise to you was to discuss feedback and appraisals as part of an effective performance management system, to talk about how to structure feedback so that we lift people up, not tear them down, and give you some ideas on how to help people achieve through feedback and performance appraisals, and how you could possibly turn some poor performance around. Remember, if you need to leave early, fill in the exit survey, because everybody that does gets the free talent assessment and a free appraisal helper, as well as the opportunity to register for a 25% discount on any Zoom or face-to-face training program. And one lucky person that fills in the exit survey will get a multi-dimensional leadership assessment and will help them build a great leadership personal development program. Walter, I guess it's time to take some questions.
Okay, can we have your questions, please, in the chat? I've got a couple of questions in already, Bob.
Okay.
Here's one. We've got a appraisal system in the business I work in, but it's not very good. What should I do about that?
Well, if you don't have the right to change it, then work with it. You treat it as the minimum. It makes sense to use it. It's there. Hopefully it's systematized and it can record and track things that you set as goals afterwards. Unfortunately, some appraisal processes are kind of PDF and paper-based, and they're really difficult to work with afterwards. The important thing is not to ignore it, because that's not buying into organizational behavior. Use it and add to it. Whether it's systematized or PDFs, we have a responsibility as the leader to actually log those actions and do something with them. And those actions may come from ideas that the employees contributed to us. It doesn't just have to be what we've put into the meeting. Please record them. Please follow them up, even if you have to do that by email or by Teams task system. Find a way of systematizing it so that you can be consistent in the follow-up. That would be my answer, Walter.
Thanks. Another one here, Bob. I read somewhere that I have to give more positive than negative feedback. Why is that the case?
Yeah, psychologists would argue about that. And some of you will know my fascination with psychiatry as well as psychology. Different people will say there's a proportion of positive to negative feedback that kind of overcomes the negative. And some psychologists and psychiatrists say it's 3 positive strokes that overcome 1 negative stroke. Some say it's 5. They're all in agreement that when we get hurt, we need a cuddle. And those cuddles as a child, of course, are more physical, and as an adult, they are far more verbal. And we know that words shouldn't hurt us. Actually, the tongue is probably one of the most powerful weapons there are, as I think some people are finding out in Ukraine and Russia at the moment. The words we use can lift people up or tear them down. And if you've taken someone down a peg or two, you've got to help rebuild them. If you're going to build rapport with them, if you're going to rebuild trust with them, there has to be something which overcomes the hurt. You cut your finger, you bash your nose, we do something to repair the damage. It's more important to do that emotionally than it is, in a sense, to do that physically. And although they argue, psychologists, whether it's 3 or 5, I take the easy route. For me, 5 positives will overcome 1 negative. Hopefully that's a reasonable answer, Walter.
Thanks, Bob. Another one here. Our company's fairly informal. How would you suggest I go about starting a feedback process?
So where formal feedback systems are not in existence, it depends on the level you're at in the organization, I guess. I think at any level, as a team leader or as a team manager, you could get the team together and co-design a feedback mechanism and begin to put some kind of feedback in place. There's most organizations, most teams would benefit from daily huddles, or at least a weekly huddle. Most teams and organizations would benefit from a team meeting once a month at least. And you can see there's a transition from daily and weekly huddles which work in the business, and monthly and maybe quarterly meetings which work on the business. And of course, if you have a daily huddle or a weekly huddle, you can start with good news. You can start with praise. You can call people out. If you have a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, which is more about on the business, you still can start with good news, and you can extrapolate the good news and do some more formal feedback. You can even get the team to feedback on each other. You know, one of the teams I've worked with recently, we sent around a survey which was identify 3 specific pieces of evidence which support a praise, some recognition for each of your team members, and 1 piece of evidence where you think they could improve. Now, we didn't ask them for a negative. We asked them for 3 positives and 1 improvement idea per person. We collated the feedback and presented it to the team. There are ways of formalizing things without calling it an appraisal process and involving HR. So really, there's no excuse for any team leader or manager of any team that they can't give feedback on a regular basis because a process doesn't exist. Now, of course, if you can formalize that above 1 team and spread it out, then all the better. You might not be able to do that. Start where you are. Don't wait for somebody at the top or somebody at the bottom to drive you into this. Do it proactively.
Thanks, Bob. I think probably our last point here, I think you may have touched on this already. I'm unclear on what systematizing feedback in real time can look like.
Yes, this goes back to the point about ensuring that something in the job itself is pleasing or gives immediate feedback. I always think of my older brother, Paul. He was an accountant, a cost and management accountant, and he's sadly no longer with us. He would spend hours trying to make sure that things added up. So, you know, he's doing double entry, he's doing bookkeeping, he's creating a balance sheet, he's creating a profit and loss, he's got kind of both sides of the equation going on. And if he actually got to the right number in both columns first time, you just had to look on his face, was absolutely delight. He is just over the moon. So he got an awful lot of motivation from that point in the process when it became correct. Of course, before it became correct, he'd be getting negative feedback because the numbers didn't add up. And in any job, if we think about it well enough and maybe involve the people who actually do the work, then we can find a way to put some kind of mechanism in there, even if it's about task completion, for instance, and you want to reward people for task completion. Well, is there a visible measure? Is there a dialometer? Is there a thermometer which is giving them feedback on the percentage of tasks they've completed on time? That's a fairly simple thing to set up if you're using TaskFlow software. Same with call targets. You know, sales is an obvious place where you can get a lot of measurements from. If people have hit the volume of activity, are things going green? Are things yellow? Are things red? Are things orange? We can put a dashboard up there. We can visualize it. We can put things on storyboards. We could even use a Kanban board. What am I supposed to do in 1 column? What am I already working on? 2nd column. What have I done? 3rd column. And people get to move the tasks along the Kanban board. It is about visualizing and displaying the progress people are making through any part of the process. And the more you can do that and build it inside the task, the better.
Thank you, Bob. Well, that's our time coming up to 12 o'clock. So thank you very much. It's been brilliant. You can lots and lots of really good ideas there. Getting that sense in the chat. So thank you. Thank you for your insight and your wisdom. So can we have a look, please, at what's happening next week.
Oh,
So-
I haven't got the slide ready. Sorry, Walter. I was
Oh, okay. Well,
enjoying myself. Hold on. Let me get there. I didn't think to get that ready. That was silly, wasn't it? Right.
so next week, Terry Hill. Terry Hill's a psychologist and for 30 years in practice. And he's going to be talking and working with us on teamwork and culture, getting it right, getting the right culture for your team, building teams, helping people improve. So in a way, it's a lead on from what we've been doing today. So make sure you register for next week, same time, same place, next Thursday for Terry Hill. It should be good. So don't forget to fill in the survey, the exit survey, if you want all those goodies that Bob was talking about, the talent inventory and the appraisal helper, and to get that training if you're interested in that. And somebody will get a really nice prize there. So thank you for your attendance today. It's been really good to be here and really good to support Bob. And I think he has really interesting material and lots of good ideas. So have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Bye everyone. Bye.
Bye.
This has been a Thoughts on Thursday webinar production from Be More Effective. For more information, go to bemoreeffective.com. Remember, be more, do more, create more.